In this video, I take a deeper dive into multiplayer racing in AMS2 and discover it's actually more usable than I first thought, but only if you know how, and all from an older gamer's perspective. In a recent review of AMS2, I mentioned that multiplayer was a bit on the basic side, in comparison to the juggernaut of online racing that is iRacing, mostly due to the basic nature of how multiplayer is accessed in AMS2. However, a few of your comments have kindly pointed me towards ways that AMS2 can be used for multiplayer, but only if you put a little bit of effort into the process. First of all, before we get into that, what exactly are the problems with multiplayer in AMS2, and then how can we overcome them? Understanding the interface. The first problem you encounter in AMS2 multiplayer, and this is, in my opinion, a fairly common issue across the whole of AMS2, and that is getting your mind around how the multiplayer interface works and what it's trying to tell you. Most of the information is fairly straightforward. This is the lobby name here on the left, which you don't really need to pay too much attention to unless you are looking for a specific lobby run by a specific club, for example, Racecraft. I'll come to Racecraft later in this video. Lobbies can be filtered by using the filter and tapping in the name here, then hitting save. Don't forget to hit save because there's no reminder prompts in AMS2, none at all. When exiting any of the screens that need some kind of saving and you don't save, then you just lose everything. That's just the way AMS2 is. Once you've saved the lobby filter names, the list of lobbies appear with just the ones you want to focus on. Now pay attention here in the lobby list to the word practice, which appears usually in the name. If you see that, then you can assume that, naturally, this is only a practice lobby. No races will happen here, okay? Sounds obvious, but if you don't know it, you might miss it. But if you want to race, you will, after practicing in this lobby, you will need to leave this lobby and find the race lobby that links to this one, if it exists. There are sometimes practice lobbies that are just there for people to practice a particular circuit at a particular time of day. Take from that what you will. To use this system, you need to enter the practice lobby, do your practice, and then when the race is about to start, you will need to exit the practice lobby, find the race lobby and enter that. And you have to do all of this manually. If you are coming from iRacing, where this is all done automatically for you, it can feel like a culture shock. But bear in mind, AMS2 multiplayer is free to play once you've bought the title, and that all the tracks are available for you to race, even if you don't own the DLC. There is a caveat to this. If you don't own the DLC of some of the cars, you might not be able to enter the multiplayer. But it's not a problem for the tracks. So if you see a track and you know you don't have it because you haven't bought it, that's not a problem. But that doesn't guarantee you admission, because if you haven't got the DLC cars that might happen to be being used here, you're not getting in. So that all sounds complicated, but it's not always the case. There are sessions that are set up that include a practice session, followed by a qualification session, and then of course the race, all in the one parcel. This can all be accessed from the same lobby. So you go into that lobby, you enter the session, you do the practice, you do the qualification and the race, and you will progress automatically through each of these stages. You will be prompted when this is going to be happening, but you won't actually have to do anything about it. It will just happen around you. You'll be able to enjoy it. It's all done for you, much like iRacing. Unfortunately, those sessions where these sort of things happen automatically tend to be the wildest sessions where there is little regulation. So be aware that going into one of those sessions can be a double-edged sword. You'll get your practice, you'll get your qualification, you'll do the race just like iRacing, but you'll be in a race that's possibly, quite probably, very chaotic. Next to the lobby name, you'll find the class of car or cars being used. And next to that, an indication on whether or not there's some kind of rating system being used for this race. I'd love to tell you about that rating system, but I couldn't find much information on it. So please comment below if you know anything about it. Information on AMS2 is very difficult to get. There doesn't seem to be a manual to download, and Any information that I have gathered about this has been from Reddit and other forums, which is not ideal because that's not always guaranteed to be correct. Now, next to the rating system is the track name. Now remember, you don't have to own this track if you want to race on it, so that's good. And then there's the session information. Now this last one, this session information, is the important one you need to pay attention to if you want to avoid wasting your time. So in here you can see there are 4 letters, L, P, Q and R, which is of course lobby, practice, qualification and race. Now you see the red dot. This indicates which one of these particular stages is currently active. If you only want to practice, you will need to look for a lobby with the red P selected, which means that at that time the session is in practice mode. Unfortunately, the red R means a race has already started. So if you are looking for a race to race and not just be a spectator, you could avoid wasting time by clicking on this lobby name, because you won't get in. An improvement to this interface would be to filter out races that are ongoing, that have already started. So it's nice to know before I click on a lobby if I'm actually too late to enter a race. Other issues with the interface is the filter here, which is very basic. If I want to select cars in the filter, if I'm only looking, for example, GT4, I have to click through every single class in alphabetical order until I get to the one I want, and that gets old fast. A drop-down menu here would have been really nice. I would also like to be able to select for practice or qualification and only look at those lobbies that are offering this, or only look at those lobbies that are offering race. But I'm not able to do that with this filtering system. It's not a fatal issue. This interface is not mind-bendingly difficult to understand. Once you get to grips with it, it's fine, but it does feel crude. Like I say, not a deal breaker, but it's a shame that not more effort is put into updating the interface, as it's starting to look very Xbox original to me. Population count. The next most obvious problem with multiplayer in AMS2 is the lack of other racers to actually race against. If I dive into peak time rookie race in iRacing, I am likely to see hundreds of other competitors, which will be divided into various splits, sorted into evenly matched races, kind of. Compare that with AMS2's multiplayer and you see a marked difference, both in the number of races available and also the number of players willing to race those events. Mostly at peak times, the lobby list looks a bit like this. Outside of peak times, it can seem a lot bleaker. The number at the side here indicates the total number of racers and the total of number that can compete. These people are either in the lobby at the moment or actually in the race. If it is a race and it's already started, this may indicate the number of drivers, although that can also have been supplemented by AI drivers. A low population figure is also something to deal with cautiously. It may just indicate that this is a practice-only lobby that exists almost permanently, simply for the purposes of drivers practicing for an upcoming race, or for various third-party organizations to qualify drivers for their races. Racecraft uses this technique where drivers have to complete at least 3 clean laps in order to qualify for a race lobby in the Racecraft area of play. I'll come back to that a little bit later in the video. Racing a multiplayer race. So now you understand the interface and how to filter it and what to look for in the way of red dots and what those red dots actually mean. Finding a race should be fairly uncomplicated. Well, kind of. Mostly I was seeing races for GT3, with GT4 only appearing in mixed class races, although there were some exceptions to that, particularly those run by Racecraft. Formula V, one of my favourites, was not appearing very much at all. I found one race with it in, but that was racing at night, and I really didn't get on with that at all. But still, if you can find a race that you like, and once you're in the lobby that offers you what you need, with a car that you like on a track that you might know, then you are quite literally off to the races. It's very simple. But this word of caution here again, as I mentioned earlier, the AMS2 open races are in fact the Wild West of sim racing. there's very little cautious driving going on here, and a lot of epic crashes. I finished this race that you can see now, but I was hit so many times during the 10 laps that I don't know how my car finished. I really don't. Certainly, there didn't appear to be any kind of point system in this race that would earn the other drivers a disqualification. Or if there was one, it was set so high it never happened. The race was an interesting experience, but it's probably not one that I would be keen to repeat. Racecraft to the rescue. So if the vanilla experience in AMS2 multiplayer is somewhat raw and left wanting, what is the alternative? One that I found with a lot of promise and something that I will be going back to is Racecraft. This is, as far as I can see, an independent group who offer races using the AMS2 lobby system. To access the race, you first need to set up an account on their webpage. I'll link that below. And you need to link your Steam account to the account you create on Racecraft. This is in order for them to track your driving skills, ability, and wins and losses. Once you do that, you then need to qualify for the race. To do this, you can enter the Racecraft in the filter system in AMS2 to show only the lobbies of Racecraft, and then look for one marked as a practice session for the race that you are interested in. Here I picked the South African track Kyalami, I think that's pronounced maybe, mostly because they were driving GT4, which is my car of choice on AMS2. You can see the lobby here prefixed with the name Practice, which is cool. I know what it is, I know where I need to be. To qualify, I need to race on this lobby 3 clean laps. Now, I did this although I wasn't sure if the laps needed to be in succession or if there was a tempo limit to stop people just creeping slowly around the track and getting their 3 laps like that. But I managed to pass the test, and then I was allowed to join the race lobby. Remember, in AMS2, you need to disconnect from the practice lobby and find the race lobby of the same name. Once I did this, I ran the qualification laps, and then the race started automatically, placing me on the grid, and away we went, in a race that felt a lot less chaotic than the standard AMS2 open lobby. But also, it placed me with drivers who were very, very good. Much better than me, in fact, with no real attempt, as far as I could see, of grading driving by ability. Or maybe it was just because there was only enough cars for the one race, and that meant I was racing top drivers. In iRacing, if you were in a C-class race, you may have also seen this with single split races. I did note that a lot of drivers in this race were AI, used presumably to fill the places left by the low count of AMS2's multiplayer population, or lack therein. Conclusion. Generally speaking, the raw AMS2 multiplayer experience is an eclectic one. Once you have the interface sorted out, which doesn't take too long to understand but could be more intuitive, it's easy enough to get into the actual racing. However, finding a good race in the open lobbies with decent drivers is going to be far trickier. And from what I have seen, you are more likely to find various car parks on track and also experience a lot of people slamming into your backside. Personally, I am not tempted to go back to this particular method of playing AMS2 multiplayer. However, Racecraft for AMS2 is a different kettle of fish. Here I found drivers who were intelligent and offered keen and safe racing, albeit highly competitive. I like their website, I like that you can actually race GT4, and that the tracks remain active for a week, giving you a chance to brush up on your times. It's pretty good, and I'm sure that there are others like this. So if Racecraft are not offering what you want to race, have a hunt around the internet and see if you can find what you do want. If anyone knows of other groups that offer this sort of race lobby setup, please comment below. So AMS2 multiplayer is, on reflection, pretty good. It's great, in fact, but only if you put the effort into finding a group that offers a lobby with racers who can only race if they can prove they are good enough to do so. In the main, I think that AMS2 is suited to the sort of multiplayer that is drawn to privately organised events, with perhaps a group of like-minded individuals who will set up a lobby, probably behind a password, and race with people they know and trust. Or they'll use something like Racecraft, who try to simulate and organise that type of environment. The other side of the coin is the open lobby in AMS2, and it's not one to enter if you are of a nervous disposition. Be warned. Until next time, race clean, and I will see you on track. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click the like button, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe. Click the little bell icon if you want to be notified of any future videos.